Hey traders and investors, checking in on the marijuana stocks. They've been under a lot of pressure and a lot of weakness over the last 6+ months as the broader market continues to thrive in all-time high environments. We're going to look at 3 US MJ names, 3 Canadian MJ names, and 3 psychedelic names as these sectors are correlated to each other. We're going to look at some previous history as far as what we can look for as guides for major momentum shifts that eventually take place. And we're going to look at what we need to see for the bulls to start proving something to us. Let's check out the charts. So I'm only limiting the number of stocks that I actually look at because otherwise this would be an hour-and-a-half long video. So there's definitely other honorable mentions out there, but these are the names that I've chosen to look over. Going to be talking mostly about technicals, not really into the fundamentals in the short term as much. Obviously, the bigger picture fundamentals are why I'm interested in the sector. But with where we stand right now, we have voting season coming up in November. That's still multiple months away. Generally, we've seen seasonal shifts. In my 11 years of trading marijuana stocks, it's been a very consistent pattern. It's not every year, but it is certainly more often than not where it's summer weakness into fall voting season, winter hype, and that has to do with media, and you get headlines and more attention, and every different state that's got all these initiatives on the ballot. So that's generally when we see some uptick in the sector, so that's something we're watching for. But really what it boils down to is we had a bit of a sell the news event with the Democrats winning the Senate and Biden winning the presidency. And now what? And now we're just reminded, oh yeah, the government sucks. It takes a really long time. And the fact that we are still Schedule 1 towards the end here of 2021, the amount of hypocrisy is infuriating. So that's where we stand. It's a very slow road for getting any changes. And again, I'm not holding my breath for these fundamental changes to take place. We know they will eventually. A lot of people that are watching this video probably have, long-term hold mindset, and that's perfectly fine, but it's not my trading style. So I have been cash as far as the sector is concerned more often than not. I did make one swing entry attempt recently. I'll go over that. But we're going to be looking back to 2019 and comparing it to 2019 because that's the last time we saw really the psychological state of this sector this low in terms of just forever downtrend, and bulls can't do anything to shift momentum. And obviously we eventually did. But back in 2019, the biggest mistake I made as a trader in 2019 was scaling into names looking for fundamentals and long-term positions that just dropped lower and lower and lower for months. And I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that again. A lot of it has to do with it being on the OTC as far as US marijuana stocks are concerned. But I personally perform much better when I am trading and in a shorter term mindset. I know that's not for everybody, but it's for me because of the amount of time that I put into trading stocks on a daily basis. So let's look at first a reminder of the different kinds of shifts that we see psychologically in this sector. So this was from January 13th to start this year, and this was when USMJ was sunshine and rainbows and everybody was happy as a bull. That was, before the top was hit, but on our way up to the top. And it was when we were exploding in these names, following the big flush out from the COVID dump, and then a run up to all-time highs. So this was me saying, congrats bulls, but let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's reflect on how absolutely opposite the emotions, trends, and sentiment were in USMJ 2019 compared to now. It went down every day. There was no hope for bulls. It was infuriating and depressing. Does that sound familiar? The exact same thing happened in crypto, and they will continue to happen as well. Here we are, cycle happening again. So we have to familiarize and remember both so we can act accordingly next time cycles shift. Certainly not anywhere near calling tops. I believe we will have to see uplisted USMJ tickers for the big boys to really break hearts in terms of doses of extreme euphoria and fear. Obviously, that's not the case. We've certainly got plenty of fear over the last 6 months of pullback. But again, the point is, this is going to continue happening in this sector and the crypto sector and all these high-risk, high-reward sectors. They go through these emotional cycles. So we have to remember peak euphoria when we are in the depths of despair. And we have to remember the depths of despair when we are in peak euphoria. If we're feeling peak euphoria, we want to be taking some profit. And when there's depths of despair, we want to potentially be building some positions. And that's if we have, it's generalizing a good bit, but that's our broader mindset, the way that we want to be playing things. We don't want to be selling in the depths of despair, and we don't want to be buying at tops of euphoria. So 2019 is our guide as far as to comparing it to hear. And a lot of people are going to say, well, the fundamentals are so different, yada, yada, yada. Doesn't matter to me. To me, it's all emotional cycles, and it's the same to me. So let's just look real quick at TCNNF as one example. And here is back in 2019. So we peaked out in April and then all summer. So peak in April and we drop all the way to August. Here we are, end of August. Look at when the low was, August 28th. Does that mean yesterday was our bottom in USMJ? I'm certainly not going to make that kind of prediction, but the timeline is so similar in terms of seasonality. What was the pullback like? Well, I'll tell you. From the high, from April all the way to August, we dropped 54%. What did the shift look like? There wasn't any clear trend change. It was just kind of complete bear control. We hit our bottom, and we didn't really get much daily oversold conditions. That's different this time around. Well, not very different, but it was bears in complete control, and then we just slowly started grinding up. And there wasn't any moment where you could look back and say, the shift is on. There wasn't any news that saw a huge catalyst. What we see happen is the scales tilt. Demand is far exceeding supply for a long time, and then we start to get towards the bottom, and they start to even out, and then the scales tilt. Sometimes scales tilt like this, and it's just short squeeze, and we shoot up fast. Other times, they slowly tilt, and this is an example of that, where we saw a big bounce. We hit our low, and again, no 2-day impressive move here. It was a green day, and then some red days, and a couple green days, a little 2-day move there, but at no point do you look at that and say, the bulls are back, we're about to rip to all-time highs. So on this move, we ended up going, my tools are not wanting to cooperate, 31% fairly quickly in just a couple of weeks, and then we gave more than 70% of that move back, and then the bulls took over and kept control for a good bit into the winter. And then, of course, we had COVID. Not even going to touch COVID at this point as far as its impact because it was so unique. But again, just the shift from the summer into voting season and into the fall and winter. So let's look at CGC at the same period of time. It was a bit different. And that was really when USMJ and Canadian MJ made some distinctions between themselves. After being very correlated, we're going back to the same period in time here, 2019. There's your April top. And then we pulled back to August. And we bounced in August, but that wasn't our low. And we kept dropping until earnings all the way in November. So Canadian MJ had a little bit of a tougher time with it. But to that drop in August, same kind of percentage move, 55% or so. And then a solid bounce that didn't hold, but it was a nice little shift in momentum end of August into September. So those are just, again, generalizing. You want an individual name that you're looking at that I'm not covering? Go back and look at that period of time. Compare it. What were the pullbacks like? What were the bull moves like? What did the reversal look like? So TCNNF now, let's compare to now. 55% pullback, April through August. Well, here we are, March. Topped out a month sooner. Pullback of 51%. How similar are these patterns? Very similar. Time frame almost aligns, seasonality, and the percentage almost aligns. So we are now trying to find a bottom on TCNNF with news reaction, with CEO's husband getting charged with whatever he got charged with, bearish reaction there, and attempting an oversold bounce, but really just trying to build a base of support. So I'm watching for the shift to take place. And I'm going to talk a little bit about bigger picture, the broader market, because I'm always watching correlations. Who's stronger, who's weaker. And again, can't call it any other way. This is one of the weakest sectors in the market. You're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody, any sector that is underperforming MJ sector over the last 6 months because so many things are up at all-time highs and running really strong. So again, that's something we're always aware of because if the broader market starts to see any notable weakness, we can always go lower. And that's a mantra with this sector that I always have in the back of my mind. We can always go lower. It can always get more extended than I think it can. And I know a lot of traders and a lot of you watching this right now have had those feelings over the last few months because of fundamentals and because of market cap and because of all of those reasons that we would anticipate not seeing this big of a pullback from the all-time high 6 months ago. So at this point, we are looking for a shift in momentum. And if there's no news catalyst to do it, what I'm watching, again, we have to be cautious of the broader market, but we know SPY is in blue sky breakout, and SPY has been at all-time highs now for a long time. We have not seen any monthly consolidation over the last 9 months. And honestly, I would be more comfortable looking for entries in the MJ sector if SPY was just forming a monthly high or low right now. Cooled everything off, little bit of a reset, and look for that monthly high or low. Because the last thing I want to see happen is a momentum shift start to take place right into the broader market pulling back. Now, we did get a bullish reaction out of Powell on Friday, pretty much saying, tapering doesn't mean we're going to necessarily raise rates, and giving the market a lot of confidence that, okay, we don't have to worry about rates being raised in the near term. And the S&P 500, again, big volume, new all-time high, tech sector all-time high, financial sector all-time high, but the sector I'm watching is IWM. And IWM is the Russell 2000, it's smaller caps, and it's more related to growth names. And I lump in growth names with names that have been consolidating over the last 3 to 6 months, and we'll look at some examples. And again, MJ is the weakest of the weak of the growth names. Growth names are weaker than all these other sectors. MJ is at the bottom of the pile of these growth names. So IWM has made a significant shift right now, where we just confirmed a daily trend change, huge day on Friday, and we confirmed a weekly trend change at the same time on Friday. So what MJ bulls really want to see is a bull flag on the monthly time frame for IWM and a new all-time high. And if the S&P 500 is going to keep grinding higher, they want IWM to be a major factor as to why that's going on, because that shows us rotation. Money rotating around, which has kept this market so strong for the last 9 months. It's been a thing of beauty. It's an art form to watch the rotation that's been going on between our major sectors. And if IWM can confirm a new all-time high and a monthly bull flag, that can be a spark to help the MJ sector shift its momentum. So when we see momentum shifts, generally what happens, and I'm going back to crypto and other sectors, we see the leaders go first. And we see confidence reestablished in the leaders. And then we see profits go down to the laggards and say, okay, well, the leaders, we got a sigh of relief. We're believing the bulls now. They've made a notable shift. Now it's the laggards' turn. So if we are going to see the MJ sector shift momentum sometime in the coming few weeks and put in a temporary bottom and start to try and climb back towards voting season and shift trends on different time frames, in my opinion, it needs to be the growth bulls gaining confidence and having that confidence trickle down to the weakest of the weak. And we need that monthly bull flag here. There are different groupings of the growth names that I've been watching. I watched NIO, again, massive all-time high run and a pullback for 4 months to a higher low. And now we got a monthly equilibrium. So there's a ton of growth names that had that pattern. ARKK is another one, 4 months of consolidation and then follow through on the bounce. And the solar sector is another one. So there are other names that have not done this yet. We've been watching Penn recently for its 6 months of pullback. It has now shifted momentum. A bottom is in on Penn in terms of, the near term. A very clear momentum shift has taken place. 6 months of consolidation, and the similarity between all these names are massive run to an all-time high, big retracement, and setting the higher low on that retracement. So Penn took a couple extra months to do it and is doing it now. Zillow is another name that's trying to do it. Massive run to all-time highs, massive retracement. So who does this look like? MSOS, USMJ, massive run to all-time highs, 6 months of pullback, but it's the least, it's showing the least amount of a bounce out of all these other names, which is again why I'm ranking it at the weakest of the weak. And you compare CGC, same deal. It didn't get the all-time high run, but it tested all-time highs, massive move up, massive retracement for 6 months. So we need to see IWM lead the way bullish and to see confidence trickle down into the weakest of the weak. So now let's look at individual names, starting it with CGC. And we can see the pattern of a lower high every single month for the last 6 months. The weekly time frame is in a very clear downtrend. Weekly EMA 12 resistance has, this red line here, has been rejecting the price all the way since April. So we've got our 4-month resistance to be watching. And that means the next time we bounce, we can see a 25% bounce from here and still just be looking for a weekly lower high. Well, maybe not 25%. We'll call 20% bounce to test weekly EMA resistance. So we have to change trends. And a change in trend is a higher low, a bull move, a higher low, and a higher high to confirm a trend change. And most names here have to do it on the daily time frame, and then we zoom out and scout a weekly lower high. And then they have to do it on the weekly time frame. So let's just say, for argument's sake, if CGC's bottom was in right now, what that would need to look like is we had our bounce from 1627 to 18. We need to hold 1627 and break 18. Daily trend change confirmed. Step 1. All that means is we zoom out and watch weekly EMA 12 resistance, which has consistently rejected the price. From there, we need a big enough bounce on the weekly for the same thing to happen, a higher low and a higher high, confirming a trend change. From there, we would then zoom out and look for a monthly lower high. There's a ton of space for a monthly lower high to form. If we're going to talk longer term momentum shifts, same deal. We need a big enough bounce to set a monthly lower high and then change the trend. So it's a long, slow road, unless there's some kind of news catalyst for a short squeeze, which I'm not holding my breath for, but it's a long, slow road to change the longer term trends. It takes one time frame at a time, and every time you do it, all you do is zoom out and look for the lower high on a longer term time frame. So it takes a while, but what we need to see is daily trend changes as step number one. And the day on Friday that the bulls had was extremely disappointing compared to IWM and the broader market. The broader market was extremely strong Friday. So I did make an attempt to make swing entries in the MJ sector during this last period. I was looking at this as saying, okay, bears look a little exhausted to me. We're starting to establish some levels of support. And there's a very clear tight setup here where if it breaks bull, we're going to start to see a short-term momentum shift. So I established some positions. And again, the only reason I was making entries down here a bit aggressive, because I was doing so before the bulls were proving a whole lot to me, was because I didn't have any exposure in the sector. You know, I don't have positions that have been dropping over the last 6 months. I've been trading other things, and now I'm ready to, okay, let's start watching for this momentum shift. So I did stop out of some small starter positions in the sector on this most recent leg down, but I'm building those positions back again. Starting Friday, just started to add some back, and some CGC, some ACB, some MSOS, and again, just little starters. And if we drop down to fresh lower lows, I'm going to exit again. I will keep taking these small losses because, again, the last thing I want to do is, hold a position and say, well, we got to be close to the bottom. And then SPY starts monthly consolidation. And next thing I know, my positions are down 10 to 20%. So that's just my trading style. And again, it's a very short-term trading style to try and nail the shift in momentum. But that is the way that I am approaching the sector in the short term from here. So CGC must hold 16.27 and break 18. And I can just make a simple statement. If we do not break $18 next week, that's a red flag for me that we are likely not seeing a temporary bottom put in. So we have to see that shift take place. I'm watching a falling wedge-like pattern. I don't love the support line because there's only 2 distinct touches here, and I generally want 3 touches for it to be very clear. But the resistance line is nice and valid just because it's got so many touches. And this is a pattern that I'm watching. And if you are a crypto trader, you know that we have prolonged periods of despair, and the weakest of the weak names generally will have a falling wedge that ends up breaking bull. And just as an example, Litecoin has been one of the weakest cryptocurrencies. That was a falling wedge that I was watching on it that ended up breaking bull. It hasn't led to a significant shift in momentum, but we can go back and look at the most significant shift that took place earlier this year. And again, it was the same thing. It's just this slow grind down that changes its trend on a falling wedge bull break. So something I'm keeping an eye on for CGC. ACB, why do I like ACB's setup? Fundamentally, probably not a leader in the space, but technically why I love this setup, and again, it's a silver platter for bulls right now. It's right there for the taking, the shift in momentum, as it was 2.5, 3 weeks ago, where they failed. Extremely tight pattern. If you break that bull, a good number of shorts are going to cover, and some bulls are going to jump in on that momentum, and they failed to do so. So the burden of proof is on the bulls, but it's right there for the taking. And why I like this setup is because if we confirm this daily trend change with a break of 726 and then a triple top of 755, if we take out all those levels, we are then at a price that puts, this is the way that I view a trend change in a longer term shift. We're then at a price that puts any bear that's gone short underwater for the last 6 weeks. That's a decent amount of time. And the percentage move that we need to get there is only 5%. And in the MJ space, 5% is nothing for a name like ACB. So again, it's right there on a silver platter. You can put every short that has entered bearish on ACB in the last 6 weeks in the red if you can go up 5% from here. Now, the other names have a lot more proving to do. If you look at CGC, how much of a bull move do we need for that same thing? 6 weeks of shorts to be underwater. And it's something like 20%, a much more different scenario. A lot more work for the bulls to put in that move to put those shorts underwater. Because when the momentum shifts, not only is it bulls buying the dip, obviously it's shorts covering their positions. And every trend change that we get and every day of follow through that we get convinces more and more shorts to exit positions, which again just adds buying pressure to keep the shift in momentum going. We need those scales to tilt. So ACB has a really nice setup for that. Base of support 690, 689, 688 would be the level. Quadruple bottom at 688. 4 days in a row we're holding that level. Now we have to break 726 and 755 this coming week, and we have to see increasing bull volume. I don't think I've mentioned that yet. When the momentum shift takes place, increasing bull volume needs to be a part of it for it to be convincing. And again, if we break some resistance levels, we'll zoom out, and there's a whole bunch of resistance, 954 and 1064, but that's 50% away. So we're not worried about that right now. We're looking at the short term and what would be needed for the momentum shift. TLRY, again, same thing. I could draw a pattern where it's just bears running out of steam a little bit. The momentum shift has not taken place. The burden of proof is on bulls to do so. But again, the setup is here. It is there for the taking. The bulls just have to show up with some volume and take it. So I'm watching this downtrend resistance and support level because these bear breaks. And a falling wedge is essentially bear breaks that don't see a whole bunch of follow through. So here was a bear break straight into a bull move. That was earnings, I believe. And here's another, let's see, 1254, 1255. So there's a double bottom right now. And again, just a little tightening range for the last 2 weeks. And if we get over 1382 and 1406, it's a shift in the daily momentum. And then again, we zoom out and we just scout a weekly lower high, anything under 1667. But it would be a notable shift in daily momentum. Same thing though, if we need to put 6 weeks of shorts underwater, we got to go 20% plus. So ACB stands out for that reason. Special shout out to VFF. VFF, not going to cover it in depth here, but it is holding support from May, and you'll find none of these other names are close to holding support from May. So it does have a little bit more price action support than those other names. IIPR doesn't get any love, and it is the golden child of the MJ sector. And it issues dividends, and it's traded on the NYSE. This is what broader market correlation does when you're in a blue sky, broader market, and you're just, the rising tide raises all ships. And IIPR is benefiting from that. And it is just an absolute stud. And the monthly consolidation that we saw here ended up being a bull flag. And this is the monthly consolidation that all USMJ wanted to see. And all these MSOs are looking over at IIPR with jealousy in their eyes because this is a perfection pattern. And it's the best performing, it's among the best performing MJ stocks over the last 3 years. And it is certainly the best performing over 2021. So I was looking for monthly bull flags in USMJ when this monthly consolidation was taking place. And MSOS right here, it looked like it was potentially a possibility. We got lower wicks. The retracement size on this pullback isn't too significant. Let's set a monthly high or low and head back up towards our recent highs. And obviously we just failed to get any momentum going, and the opposite happened. So IIPR is a raging blue sky bull. Definitely getting exhausted. Don't look to make any entries up here. The bull breaks are lacking follow through. If I were looking for anything at this point, it would be on weekly consolidation. I'd be scouting an entry, but way overdone in the short term to be looking for any kind of longer term or swing bull entries at this point. But it's just a good visual to have to say this is what the ideal chart looks like. MSOS, we are scouting a monthly high or low compared to the all-time low. The retracement size is more than the bulls want to see at this point, obviously. And when I say retracement size, I mean the amount of the move that we gave back. Ideally, if it's going to be a bull flag, you want to get back 382 retracement or less and see continuation. Once you start to get back 50% plus, that's when you start to scout the equilibrium. So we are scouting a high or low. The retracement at this point is almost 70%, 65% or so. We're watching the pattern of a lower high every single month. And again, Penn had that pattern and broke it. Penn has a catalyst of football starting and betting. It's a gambling. So we're watching, can MJ get a catalyst into the voting season? But there's no sign of it at this point. Right now, what we need to see on MSOS is a bull break of 33.47 and 33.77. Nope, 33.47 and 34. That would be a short-term momentum shift. That would have us zoom out and scout a weekly lower high, anything under 37.50. And again, the bulls have a lot of work to do. Every single weekly bounce has been a lower high. At no point has there been any kind of fake out. It has been absolute bear control the entire time since consolidation started. You can't have more clarity than just a lower high and lower low. That's a snoring dog. A lower high and lower low every single bounce attempt. So here we are approaching weekly oversold conditions. We don't have any history to be going off of because it's a recent, it hasn't been trading so too long. We saw the RSI consistently bounce right at 30, and this most recent time it dipped under 30 for the first time, not very significantly. And someone would look at this and say, well, that's a bit of a bullish divergence in RSI trying to form. Bottom line is bulls need a ton of work, and we need increasing bull volume. And you can see that the bulls have declining bull volume on the last bounce attempt, have to see it increasing. The most significant bounce that we recently saw, there was the uptick in bull volume, and obviously it didn't result in a longer term momentum shift. That was just a weekly lower high being set, but the size of the move was definitely notable, where we went from 37s to 44, so a solid 20% plus bounce. Individual name TCNNF, definitely keeping an eye on it, and again trying to weather the storm of the bad headlines, essentially trying to build a base of support. And I would need to see a bull break of 28 and 28.98, so we'll just call it 29. If you break 28 and 29, you shift momentum. If you don't, it's a daily bear flag, and we can drop and break 26.26 and have the bears keep control. So again, we have to prepare for that possibility. Weekly oversold RSI. When's the last time we hit weekly oversold? The first one, right above it, that was our shift, August 2019. The second one was the COVID low. We are at historical bounce levels for RSI. So that's one thing that has bulls hopeful, but again, tons of proving to be done for the bulls. GTBIF still looks pretty good on the monthly. And again, you look at the retracement size of this move, and it's still a potential bull flag. A little bit more than 382 retracement, but monthly EMA 12 support is holding. And if you have to be in an MSO, this is the strongest MSO. And I'm watching a tightening range right now. Let's see if the 2-week time frame is a bit more clear. Nah, I'm gonna stick with the week or the monthly. But it's just a tightening range where you've got your all-time high, the initial low of the pullback, lower high, unable to break the all-time high, and now the bulls are looking for a higher low compared to 24.56. And the biggest difference here is we have a support level to be going off of. Most other USMJ does not. So GTBIF, technically speaking, is a lead USMJ bull. Look at that previous all-time high, 25.03, and bounce right around that level. Previous resistance acting as support. And again, if all the sector looked like this, there would not be nearly as much despair and doom and gloom as there is on social media. So GTBIF standing out as a lead technical bull. Now onto the psychedelic sector. And the psychedelic sector is correlating with the marijuana sector. It's been very weak the last few months as well. CMPS is one of the more major names. It's already confirmed a short-term momentum shift, a little daily trend change. It's not much, but it's a lower high, hold support, break resistance, little slow uptick in bull volume. Again, that just means we zoom out and scout a weekly lower high. Anything under 39.18 is a weekly lower high. But if I'm in psychedelic names, I want MJ to perform well. And if I'm in MJ, I want psychedelic names to perform well because it shows risk on, it shows an appetite for very high risk, high reward plays, and that they're in the same vein, essentially, as far as market exposure. If you ask me what is the most high risk, high reward sector in stocks right now, you're looking at it. And we're at the high risk part over the last 6 months. So again, on the monthly time frame, it listed, massive run to all-time highs, and then giving back the majority of that move. So lots of momentum shift needs to take place here. ATAI is a more recent IPO. All bears, obviously, IPOing at a very bad time for the sectors, but we found a bottom. We had an earnings low hit, and we changed a daily trend. So it was a notable momentum shift. And the weekly bounce is underway, so what does that mean now? It means we need a weekly trend change into September or into October, however long it takes. Once we top out, we need a weekly higher low and higher high. And we're just looking for that to be an all-time low for a long time if we're going to see a notable momentum shift. MNMD is the volume leader in the sector for dollar volume traded, and it's trying to base out, but again, a very clear downtrend still, and the bulls would have to break 284 this week to see the first step shift the daily trend change, then we zoom out and we scout a weekly lower high with a lot of space for it. But we're scouting a monthly higher low. We have the all-time high. Again, massive runs on all these names. Gave a ton of it back, lower high, and we're scouting a monthly higher low, anything above 205. And it looks a lot like GTBIF, but GTBIF is doing it in a range like this, and MNMD is doing it in a much bigger range. So we want to see MNMD try and follow CMPS and ATAI and see that shift in momentum take place. And it trades, $7-8 million a day, but we want to see high volume for that momentum shift to take place. So that is where I stand and how I'm watching the sector. I'm watching IWM and growth. I'm watching the broader market. I'm watching the seasonality and the voting season approaching. And I'm skeptical of bulls. I'm watching, but bulls, you got to prove it to me. I'm not going to make you any concessions because, if I say, oh, well, I'm going to just keep holding and hope it shifts. I've been there, I've done that, and that is not the way that I trade markets anymore. So we'll keep checking in and keeping an eye on this sector. Again, the last time I attempted a short, and I was wrong, and I stopped out and kept that loss small. I didn't attempt it on this stock, but you get the idea. Feel free to ask any questions. And that's that. We'll keep on watching.